been a regular guest at BioIT World, even before he and his team at CA Big, one of NCI's flagship projects, won one of the BioIT World Best Practices Awards a couple of years ago. He is, of course, as you know, the chief sort of designer and architect of CA Big. His formal title is the Associate Director for Bioinformatics and Information Technology at NCI. Actually has many titles, but that's the one I'll use in the interest of time. And Ken is going to talk about ecosystem-driven approaches for 21st century biomedicine. Ken Buetow.
Thank you all. It's my pleasure to be here. And to be frank, you actually really don't know how happy I am to be able to be here, given the events of the last several days to weeks. I'm going to actually pick up where the previous speakers, in some sense, left off. As you can see from my title, we're very interested in exploring this concept of ecosystem and trying to bring information technology as a critical tool to unify and bring together this ecosystem. What I think will perhaps discriminate a little bit from what the two previous speakers have said is what we're going to be talking about, or what I'm going to try to do, is talk a little bit about some boots on the ground experience, some experience literally at the barricades, because I think the vision of where we want to go is immensely exciting, but I think the practical challenges of how we get there are actually quite real. So I'll essentially start where Yuri essentially left off, is that we're really in the middle of a revolution. You can argue it's the third wave of revolution in pharmaceutical development that drives ecosystem, where we bring together patients, physicians, payers, companies, biomedical investigators, IT companies, in a new model of generating health as opposed to treating disease. And in this instance, what we want to do is focus on a health system that's about not necessarily just profit motive in particular context, but improving health outcomes. And the next generation paradigm in biomedicine, at least certainly in the Western world, is going to be driven by value as much as by efficacy. This ecosystem, as has already been articulated, represents a really heterogeneous and interesting, diverse collection of sources of information. I think that, again, as has been suggested by Yuri's vision into the future, there's going to be an interconnected collection of different sources of information. These different sources include the emergence of electronic health records, social media, online communities, wireless devices, smartphones. But there's an interesting challenge that comes from this, at least in 2011, is that while we will have all of these things, right now, that means that no one entity actually has the data that we will need and that will be critical for health. Again, leveraging what Deb was saying just a few minutes ago. The data lives in a diverse collection of segregated, disparate resources, and that no one group controls this data, and though all this data will be essential for us to be driving the value paradigm, the health paradigm. So I actually think, not surprising that I'm giving a talk at BioIT World, that technology is the potential solution to this problem. But at present, at least in biomedicine, it still is a problem. I don't think we should try to paint over these cracks or gloss over the context that right now, even though technology is transforming almost every other sector of the economy, of the world economy, we in biomedicine are still pretty much a backwater. And that's not to say that technology solutions don't exist. All one needs to do is step into the exhibit hall to see the tremendous collection of technology solutions that exist. But most of those technology solutions exist in isolation. They are important components. They are pieces of the jigsaw puzzle, but they are spread over a vast landscape. And in fact, we don't have a simple way to collect, aggregate, integrate, analyze, interpret, and transmit this data, just as was said by Deborah just 2 minutes ago. So what we actually really need is to figure out how we can harness this technology, this incredibly powerful information technology, and bring it to bear to solve in a common way, to solve common problems. What's exciting and interesting is in many ways we know the solutions to doing this. In fact, there's many efforts afoot right now to try to go about doing this. And what we actually recognize is that what we need to do is figure out how we can retain our competitive advantages and not necessarily standardize, but figure out how we can work around common collections of standards, common definitions of interfaces, while allowing everyone to maintain their proprietary platforms, their technology-dependent specific solutions, and to interconnect all these disparate pieces so that the whole can be more than the sum of the parts, so that we can begin to join this incredible technology bouillabaisse that we see out in the exhibit hall, so that the rich stew actually begins to solve and tackle some of these problems. And what I wanted to spend a couple minutes with, at least, is giving you some vignettes as how we at the National Cancer Institute have been trying to approach this problem. I'll give some vignettes in the individual, disaggregated pieces, and then close with how we see this maybe coming together, at least in the clinical research universe. So one of the things that this community, especially in the bio piece of the bio-IT, is aware of is that one of the things that drives the biologic enterprise is that we need to have access to biospecimens. So we've been working through the CA BIG community to create both specifications and models that allow a diverse collection of vendors as well as the academic community to create common biospecimen repositories. And so to that end, we've created and have access supported by a variety of different technology partners developed by our colleagues at Persistence and Washington University of St. Louis, an open source framework. But at this point, we have now, through these common technology solutions, about 2.1 million biospecimens available that one can connect. And more excitingly, in a national network, now have more than 1.5 million biospecimens that would be available on demand, so to speak, so that you can actually run queries and find access to these biospecimens using this information network of common specifications, common standards, and common interfaces. In a similar fashion, we've worked with our colleagues at Microsoft and SAIC to leverage specifications, standards, and reference implementations that we created to support clinical trials research to facilitate then the collection of primary health information in ultralight health records that could then be used, recycled in the context of Microsoft products, to either support personal health records as well as to support the aggregation of information so that we could create data health information exchanges and aggregate outcomes. So through the use and reuse of these specifications, we were able to show how we could take ultralight electronic health records and then populate commercial platforms such as Health Vault and Amalga in order to create health information exchange resources. In the consumer arena, we've taken, again, in partnership with our colleagues at Health Information Technology, created survey instruments that power a new activity in the Susan Love Foundation Army of Women that supports the generation of an online virtual cohort. The Army of Women's goal is to enroll up to a million or more women to participate in research activities. We've been working with the Army of Women to create the Health of Women study. And again, tools that would be accessible for anyone who wants to use or reuse standards-based survey instruments that run on just standard web platforms. We prototype the generation of the Health of Women study. And in the Health of Women study, this is just one example of, we sent out a single email to the current population last year, late last, or the previous year, to almost 250,000 people. And in a little over 2 weeks, we had recruited over 25,000 women to participate in a new online cohort to be studying all-cause mortalities related to this. So again, showing the power of engaging directly with the consumers, both to translate and transform the research endeavor, but also to engage consumers. Lastly, bringing all of these components together, we've been working with our colleagues at the University of California, San Francisco in the context of the I-SPY trial, which is essentially a next-generation clinical trial consistent with the type of work done here that's being driven by molecular characterization of individuals and integrating molecular characterization of the patients, as well as a new adaptive trial design where multiple agents are considered simultaneously, and rather than doing sequential trial analysis, those multiple combinations evaluated in real time together, one can swap out individual arms and bring in new arms. But again, integrating the power of imaging, the power of molecular characterization, as well as next generation intervention designs. And again, this brings together then all of these different components, the research components, biospecimens, molecular characterization, patient samples from the research side, but again, leverages and brings into the trial information from clinical encounters and actually cycles back information to the patients themselves so that there are personal health records and continuity of care documents that cycle back to facilitate participation and to facilitate engagement. So this trial is being run at 20 different performance sites across the United States. And again, leverages this common collection of translatable informatics to interconnect all of these individual pieces, sharing common infrastructure components, but also leveraging, most importantly, standards, CDISC standards, HL7 standards, other emerging standards across the community that are instantiated in common platforms through reference implementations and then built out to support this multi-site national-based trial. So with that, I'll close and say thank you very much. I think we're in a very exciting place where we can bring all of this together, and then, in fact, by using translatable informatics, we can drive the agenda to the next level. So thank you very much.